Welcome to the Art of Equine Alchemy. I'm your host, Amber Lydic, horse trainer, healer, and mentor. This is a podcast where practical horsemanship meets personal evolution. Here, we're diving into what it means to truly connect with your horse, yourself, and the world around you. Through conversations with equine professionals, horse owners, and members of our community, we will explore real stories, actionable insights, and tools designed to help you heal and thrive. This isn't just about horses. It's about transforming how you show up in your life. Because when you address what's happening within yourself, everything around you starts to align. Whether you're looking to refine your horsemanship skills, gain clarity on your own path, or create a more meaningful connection in all areas of your life, you are in the right place. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the Art of Equine Alchemy. This is the Mirror in the Stall series, and today we have Danielle here. I met, quote unquote, Danielle when I shamelessly asked to be on her podcast so I could promote the Art of Equine Alchemy event, when I went into a full panic that it was not feeling as expected. It did eventually, but that is how I met. So she graciously said, let's. And I loved our conversation so much. And there are so many things that were so aligned, and I loved your energy. So I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop you for 1 sec and say that yes, you asked me, but I had you on my list for so long, Amber. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, like please let me on the podcast. I was like, yes, Amber reached out. So yeah, I was super, super happy to hear from you. You've been on my list for a while, and I love that conversation as well.
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. Um, so do you want to just share with everybody what you're doing right now and all the things?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an intuitive embodiment guide, and I've stopped using the word like coach or anything like that. It's a guide, and I'm a yoga teacher, writer, web designer, creative. The podcast that Amber referenced as well is actually the We Horse podcast, The Equestrian Connection. So I'm the host of that. I do a lot of things, and I love all of it. So it's great.
I love that the embodiment piece, which is so ironic, not ironic at all, because I feel like I had just done a workshop and it was called the Pause Workshop. And I took people through like the acronym of Pause, which is sort of like this foundational piece of the Mirror in the Stall program I have. And the last piece is embodiment. And I feel like I'm deep in the lessons of that right now because that like, integration piece and the like being in your body and experiencing the things, I think is something that gets skipped because as humans, we're so like in our heads and like thinking about how to fix the things. And when you take it down into the body and doing yoga or doing anything somatic like that, it really like changes everything into like a whole.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, like we're taught to be in our heads, not in our bodies, so too, right? Like it's one of those things where we're so disconnected from it, or we bulldoze over it or ignore it. And it's kind of like we're just learning how to come back to it, how like remembering it.
Mhm. Was
Yeah.
there something specific in your life that piqued your your draw to doing that?
Yeah, and it's super relevant to this because it includes one of my horses. So, when I was like 17, 18, I had an eating disorder. And I mean, for me, like an eating disorder is the ultimate betrayal of the body, right? Like your body is like trying to speak to you and you're completely stifling it. Um, and that was exactly what I did. I was so disconnected from my body. And I continued to live like that for quite a few years. I was very much in fight or flight for like, that was 2 decades ago. And I'm like, it was like a decade and a half ago. Like it was a long time that I was in fight or flight. And I didn't know any different, right? Like to me, it was just the way that I was. I thought it was my personality. Um, And one of my horses, Sota, if you're on my Instagram or anything like that, she's like the big, beautiful black mare. She's stunning. And I had gotten her when she was 4 years old. This was 2018. And she was like everything that I was looking for. She was like athletic and willing and like quiet. Like everybody thought she was like 17 years old as a 4-year-old. She was so quiet. And after a few months, all of a sudden there was like a drastic shift in her. She was resistant and cranky. And of course, we were like, oh, it must be ulcers, all of the usual things. Fast forward through that, it was 4 years of having no idea what was going on in her body, being gaslit by multiple professionals that was telling me that, I say us as in Sota and I,
I love that.
telling me that there was nothing wrong with her, that they couldn't figure out anything that was wrong. She had so many exams. We hired multiple vets, multiple different body workers of different capacities, nutritionists, hoof care professionals, saddle fitters, like you name it, I tried it. And I even had one professional tell me that her only issue was between her ears.
Mm.
Like she was making it up. And it was like, ah, God. I knew something was wrong. And Soda was telling me something was wrong. Her behavior, she was lashing out, she was bucking and rearing and biting and bolting. Like that was not the horse that I knew her as. And everything in my body was telling me that like there was something wrong here. I say it took 4 years because it was such a learning thing for me that I didn't know how to trust myself. I didn't know how to like listen to my intuition. And even if I heard it, I didn't really listen to it. I was like, oh, but they have a credential, so they must know better. When I was the one that spent every single day with my horse, I was the one that, knew all of the signals that she was sending me. And fast forward again, it ended up being a twisted pelvis. And so it was twisting, going all up through her spine and like twisting around her pole. Like she was a mangled, just yeah, when we started, I was working with a like magician of an osteopath, and she was able to realign it all. And Soda came back into herself. She came back into her body. And that was a huge turning point for me where I really started to understand the wisdom of the body. Soda as a horse was reacting based on her body and her instincts. And it taught me how to do the same, not in a way that I'm reacting like, oh, I'm going to jump right into my flight or I'm going to jump right into my fight, but I'm reacting in the way that it's like, this is what my body is telling me. And I'm actually going to change that word react. I'm going to say the word respond. I was responding with my body. This is what my body is telling me. And I'm going to learn how to trust that. That whole experience taught me how to have a voice because I needed to give her a voice. It taught me how to advocate for myself, in order to advocate for her. So all of the things that she taught me and that really came back to me. And it brought me back into my body again after so many years being separate from it.
Mhm. So while you had her, did you actively have the eating disorder at the same time, or was that something that happened and then you had?
Yeah, so I definitely like healed from it. And I use the word like I do quotations with healed. In the eating disorder community, it's like you never really heal from it. It's always something in the back of your mind. I don't believe in that. I find that to be a really limiting belief. Um, but it was something that if I was really stressed, my first instinct was, well, I'm not hungry.
Mhm.
And so I really had to continue to work through that to be like, I need to nourish myself. I need to be strong enough to work with her and, all of those different things. So it wasn't an active eating disorder. It was an awareness of being mindful. I don't go back to that place.
Mhm. Yeah. I love the fact that I don't love the fact that it sounds horrible to say, but I love the fact that these animals come and choose to like bring these lessons for us. And I think Whenever I hear stories like that, which every single person I have on always has like at least one really impactful story about their horse that was like,
Mm.
this thing was going on and this is what my learning was that it keeps me out of pity almost. Like I feel so bad for them because I'm like, no, they are actively choosing to come do this alongside of us and going into like gratitude and honoring them for that role they're playing with us and what it does for us and how impactful and the growth and inspiration for us to go do these entire programs, because this horse came along and was like, no, listen here.
You know, you want to know something what's like really wild with all of that. In 2014, I was walking across the street and I got hit by an SUV, and it broke my pelvis in two places. Another thing that really brought me back into my body to be like, I, am I really starving myself here? Like, I could have died. Like, is this really a thing that we're gonna do to ourselves? Like, that really brought me back into my body as well. Um, and it was definitely something, it was a wake up call for me, but it was still a struggle. Um, when I got Sota, after we discovered that it was her pelvis, we realized that it had years worth of scar tissue on it. So the injury that it was likely an old injury. So likely when I had gotten her at the age of 4, there was already something there. And then as her body continued to develop, we asked more and more of her, not knowing any different. And of course, now looking back, it's like the things that I was asking a 4-year-old horse, but I didn't know any better at the time, so I'm not going to judge myself on that. And that likely was what was starting to bring the issue out. So I had that broken right pelvis that I had healed from, and it was her right pelvis that had the old injury. So it's one of those things where I look back and I think, isn't that neat? That this horse that had a right pelvis injury was like, hey, universe, connect me with this girl that has a right pelvis injury and that really needs to learn a lot of lessons, and I'll be here to teach her. So it was really cool.
It's like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. I feel like every time I hear one of those stories, I'm like, how can people possibly not well, I guess if they don't hear the stories, then they could be skeptical, but there's just too many. There's too many things that align like that where I'm like, what? You gotta be joking. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So within what you're doing right now, as far as like the yoga and the embodiment practice, like what does that look like with your clients? Is it strictly, you said, I know, but we talked a little bit before we started. I know you're a yoga teacher, but you have a new program that you're sort of going to integrate online, correct?
Sorry if you can hear my dog. My husband's just coming home. Um, yes, so I've been a yoga teacher for about 10 years. And I took a bit of a break from it for a while, just post-COVID and things like that. Now I've moved more into definitely into the somatics, the mind-body connection that goes beyond, just walking into a yoga class and moving through a flow. This past summer, so from April until August 2024, I had taken a 120-hour mind-body coaching certification. So that really started to bring more of, rather than being mind and body, it was like mind body, because I was originally taught there's your mind and there's your body. I loved and I was obsessed with learning like anatomy and biomechanics and all of those things, but I never once brought the mind connection into it. And so that really helped to cement that in, lessons and learning for me. And now I've created my own 6-week program. It's called Roots of Embodiment. We go through 6 different phases, and it weaves in somatic movement, guided visualizations, just to start to work a little bit with more the right brain rather than the left brain, get the logical out of there and get a little bit more into the intuitive. There's also some self-reflection worksheets and exercises and prompts and things like that. And yeah, it's something that I am so incredibly excited about. I'm currently doing an in-person version of it right now, here locally. And then in the end of April, I'm going to do my first online version of it. And I'm super excited about it. I'm really excited with the feedback that I'm getting from the in-person group that I'm working with. And it's something that it feels like I don't want to say my life's work because I'm 34. So like I can't feel like it's my life's work because there's probably going to be a lot of other things that come from me.
Right
Uh,
now, at this
but
current moment.
right now, this work feels so important to me. Um, it is everything that I have been learning and practicing for myself, and then put together in a way that I'm like, this really worked, and this was really helpful. And let me put this into a beautiful little package to bring it to other people as well.
hmm I love the guided journey. I literally texted Shaylee 2 days ago and I was like, I need somebody to do to me what I do to people because,
Yeah, yeah.
and I will say too, is that my favorite yoga teachers, there's a hot yoga studio down the street that I love hot yoga because I just love the heat. And I feel like on days where I just can't, I feel like I'm still doing something because I'm sweating.
Yeah.
Something is still working because I'm in here. Um, but I love it. I love it when you are moving through the poses and they are bringing that awareness in and like what's happening here in this part of your body. Because I realized a couple years ago, which is so silly because I teach this stuff, but I was going to Pilates 3 times a week and I was working out and it was difficult, but I was constantly looking because she has a private studio and she has like a petting zoo. So she has like animals walking. So I would be on the bar, like doing the things, knowing that it was hard, completely disconnected from my body and like zoned out and so wasn't really getting the results. And I was kind of like, oh yeah, like I'm working my ass off. And then one day I had something really hard happen in real life. And then when I got there, I just didn't want to think about it. So I stayed in my body like the entire time. And I was so sore after.
Mhm.
Like I didn't realize, even though I tell people all the time, like I didn't realize until that moment what a difference it makes when you stay in your body and also like doing the things. Like that's wild to
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
that I
The more
never.
you understand the foundations of Pilates, the harder it is.
hmm
Because it's like then you're really, like activating the body versus if you don't really, understand the different nuances of Pilates and it's like you're just going and you're like, oh, I'm just doing some sit-ups, or something like that. When it's like, but if you really understand Pilates, it's like, no, I'm like really engaging through here. I'm lifting the pelvic floor. And then you're like, this is so much harder.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I
But
feel like when I'm in those yoga classes and they are bringing awareness to like the different maybe emotions that can come in the certain part or what's being held there, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is just next level shit, so much better. So I love that you're doing that. You mentioned the 6 phases. Can you want to talk a little bit about that and what those phases are?
yeah, absolutely. So the first one is called Discover. And I'll give a metaphor for the first couple of phases. So it's like imagine that you have a room in your house and the color was picked by the person that lived there before you, and the room is just filled with stuff that your family and friends were like, hey, I'm getting rid of this. You need stuff for your house. You can just have it. It's not like cherished, inherited items. It's just like other people's things.
Yeah.
And so when you walk into that room, nothing really feels like you. It doesn't bring you joy. It doesn't feel like, oh, I love this room. It just has other people's things. It's okay.
hmm
It's just a room. So discover is us starting to figure out what could go in that room. And when I say the room, again, this is a metaphor. It's actually like ourselves.
hmm
But it's not clearing the room out. It's not doing any of that. It's just thinking, standing in the doorway and thinking, what would I like to have in this room? What would feel really good for me? Because I think that if we were to just clear it out altogether and start to, go shopping without really starting a foundation, we would just fill it with more things that like Instagram tells us we should like, or something like that. It's like it's not really us because we haven't discovered it yet.
Mhm.
So discover is like starting to plant those little seeds into the mind to be like, let me just pay attention here. Let me start to notice things, be more aware in my day-to-day life. What do I notice? What do I smell? What do I hear? All of the different things that activate my senses that I'm just feeling a little bit of a, that's interesting. There's something about this is standing out to me. So that's the discover phase. And of course, we integrate, like I said before, like the visualization and the somatic movement and things like that. The somatic movement portion of it is really soothing. It's really, really relaxing, and it could even be considered lazy. Like it's just relaxed. It's the foundation of coming back into your body after being potentially disconnected from it for a while.
Mhm.
Then we move into dissolve. And so this would be continuing with the metaphor. This would be the portion where you actually take everything out of the room. So all of the other people's things, you're taking it out of the room, you're clearing it out, and you're priming the walls. You don't necessarily know what's going to go in there yet. You're still figuring that out, but you're just starting to remove the stuff. So with that, of course, the somatic movement portion is allowing ourselves to release through our bodies. So there's a lot of hip mobility, there's a lot of hip opening, and then there's also psoas release. So a little bit I'll say about that is the psoas muscle. It's one of the largest muscles in our body. It connects our rib cage to our pelvis, and so it's an internal muscle. And that's our fight or flight muscle. If we are activated in a fight or flight response, we contract. And the psoas doesn't actually release on its own. So just because we're in a situation that startles us and, or upsets us or confronts us, whatever it may be that puts us in a fight or flight, just because we step away from that situation and it's no longer active, it doesn't mean that our psoas releases. It can actually stay contracted for a really long time. That can lead to us continuing to feel like we're in fight or flight, even when we're not or not actively in it. It still feels like we are, and we still therefore react as though we are. It can also lead to things like back pain because our psoas, like our internal psoas muscle, is so contracted. We have like a back pain. It can also lead to like gut issues. So we have some issues with our digestion and things like that. So there's a lot to be said about being able to release the psoas muscle. And we did those releases as well. So they're also really gentle, really relaxed, and really simple. So that's something that's really important for me as well, is that people can take away from this and say, I'm just going to take 5 minutes and do a quick somatic release. And then I'll be good. I don't have to, set aside an hour of my day and carry a yoga mat around with me or anything like that. So that is included in the dissolve portion. Um,
I have a
and
question about the
yeah,
dissolve.
absolutely.
So when you say, I think I understand what you might be speaking to, but as far as what people are dissolving. So my brain says when I'm in a room and it's filled with other people's things, it's like their belief systems, their judgments, their stories, and it's kind of creating my experience. But what are that's what my brain did. But is that what you're talking about when you speak about people's stuff in your room, metaphorically?
Absolutely. So like social conditioning,
Okay,
the
gotcha.
things that is things that we've learned throughout the years that don't actually really apply to us, or things that we carry with us. So maybe it's something like, I would love to do that, but somebody once told me it was dumb.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to do it, or something like that, where it's a limiting belief, it's a limiting story. It's things that we're ready to release. So that's that portion of it. And we go through a lot of that with the worksheets as well. So there's things, for example, like writing down a limiting story. So as an example, I could write down something like, at this point in my life, this person said this to me, and for this many years, I've been telling myself that same story. So that could be a limiting story that I write down. And then writing down how that's impacted my life. Maybe it's kept me from doing certain things because I believe that thing about myself. And then the next worksheet is to rewrite that story from a sense of empowerment. So maybe I could say, using that same example, this person said this to me, but I don't know what was going on in their life at that time. So maybe it wasn't actually about me at all. Maybe they just said it because they were projecting or, they were just lashing out. Maybe they said that and it had nothing to do with me. And this thing that I've been carrying around all these years has nothing to do with me either. So it's just like being able to rewrite that from a different perspective so that when that story comes up again, we remember that empowerment piece to say, maybe that wasn't about me. Like, do I have to keep telling myself this same thing? Do I have to keep living my life this way? Um, so yeah, that's the dissolve portion of it that way. From there, we move into desire. Um, I don't, in my opinion, I don't think we can get to the root of our desires without first going through the other portions. So we first have to let things go, as an example. So in desire, it's really about uncovering like what you're longing for. Those things that it's like, ah, it would be so nice if I could do that, or um, I would love to do this, or I'd love to wear that. Maybe it's like a sense of like style that looks so good on her, but I could never pull that off. Like those little things. And it can seem really simple and really like um, unimportant, but it's not. Like that's our sense of self-expression, and that's important. So that's included in desire as well. And then, of course, in that also is our play, our creativity, and our rest. So in our society, specifically North American society, it's like we have this sense of productivity is the most important. And instead, it's looking at it that perhaps our play and our rest and our creativity is more important. And in my opinion, it is. But really looking at the fact that we often don't prioritize that or we don't make time for it. And how can you make more time for it? What does play look like to you? It's not just like running around with a ball, or something like that, like thinking, oh, okay, like I have to be silly or something. Like play can look different to everybody else. And so you have to find what is it that makes sense to you?
Mhm.
Same as rest, and then same as creativity. So, really looking at those different things and then making it actionable so it doesn't feel like I have to take a whole Sunday in order to, do this creativity or something like that. Like, how can you weave it into your day?
Mhm.
Um, with that, so with the somatic movement portion of that, it's heart opening. And we also do some self massage. So a lot of lymphatic drainage, a lot of just like stimulation. So like stimulating through the head, stimulating through the feet, acupressure, those sorts of things to just start to like wake up the body.
Mhm.
Um, okay, I was like, do I need like I feel like I'm talking so much here. So I still have three more phases to
Well, you're
go.
supposed to be talking. You're being interviewed. That's
Okay.
the point.
Um, so the next one, the fourth one is called devote. That one is the idea that we often put discipline or like routine at the forefront. And so we all have a routine, and it's not about not having a routine. Obviously, we're going to have a routine. But when you're not aware of your routine and it's just the same thing every single day, and it's just like by the end of the day, you're like, well, that was another day done. I guess I'll do it again tomorrow. It's just like you're just in this sense of like monotony. Um, so with devote, we're looking at bringing in a ritual. So it's having a ritual versus a routine. Again, we're of course going to have a routine, but can you bring a sense of ritualization into that? So maybe that looks like every single day I'm going to do this small thing for myself. Maybe I'm going to call somebody that, I really enjoy talking to, or I'm going to, make a list so that every single week I call these different people. Maybe I'm going to make sure that I take a walk outside at this time of the day when I know is like peak sunlight hours, or, whatever it is. It could be movement, it could be like doing like a gua sha routine in the morning, or something like that. That's just like a sense of my day is different. I'm not just rushing through it. I'm not just going through the same old same. It's bringing in a essential sense of ritualization as well. So it's kind of like romanticizing your life in a way. And then also with that as well. So again, the word devote, it's devotion versus discipline.
Oh, I
We
love that so much.
Yeah, so of course, like we're gonna have discipline. It's the same as routine. Like you, at the end of the day, like we do need to get stuff done. Like we do have to, have certain things that need to be met and da 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 and all of that different stuff. Discipline is important, but there's devotion to it as well. Like I am so devoted to myself. I am so important devoted to my energy and my boundaries and all of these different things that I'm gonna weave that in to my routine and all of, my day. So that is the fourth phase, which is devote. The fifth one is deepen. This is a little easier for me to describe because it doesn't go into a ton of new detail. It's more so taking the first four phases and just bringing them a little bit deeper. So you're going back through discover and dissolve and desire and devote and really starting to bring them into the body. We're in the body the entire time, but it's like the sense of being aware of the body and then being embodied. So deepen is more of these first four phases that we embody them. We're bringing them in. And then the sixth and final one is design. So I look at this like a spider's web. Every single part of that spider's web is intentionally woven. And if you were to go through and just like snip one of the little pieces of web, it's not going to completely destroy the web, but it's going to weaken it. And so design weaves each one of these things in and brings it all together. So it's like going full circle. Design, it couldn't look like I'm the designer of my life, I'm the designer of my day, I'm the designer of my, morning, and whatever it is. How can I design? I'm in charge. I have the choice. So how can I design this to be really intentional for me, weaving in every single part of the first five phases that were really important and that they took away. So maybe it's in Discover, they really noticed something about themselves that they, didn't quite think that they would have noticed. Maybe Dissolve, it's a practice of letting something go and being aware of when that comes back in or when it starts to like knock at the door. Um, in Desire, maybe it's something that you really want to bring more into your life. Maybe it's just more having more rest. That was really important for me as somebody that was always go, go, go in that fight or flight, specifically fight. Um, Rest was like non-existent for me. I didn't believe in rest. I was like, I'll rest when I'm dead. Like I've got so many goals to meet. And so rest was really important. And that was something that I really needed to weave in. And it's completely changed my like everything. Um, and then, yeah, like the devote, having that ritual, having those things that are important to you, your values, and deepen bringing it all together in like the embodiment sense. So it's just being able to weave each one of those pieces in and really design it into your day and your life.
What a cool freaking program. I'm kind of into it. I kind of want to do it. I was like, that all sounds amazing. And I love that it's so aligned with the other program that I'm running. It's like I have a completely different acronym for the things, right? But it's like the same process and it's all so much of just accepting the story that you have. And I love when you were like not to throw everything out and get rid of it. It's like not to reject it necessarily or get rid of it because that's something I'm always reminding people when you talk about that spider web analogy. All I can see is like, yeah, like if you start snipping away and getting rid of all of these things, you're taking away from your entire experience what's made you who you are and gotten to
Yeah.
where you are, right? So you don't necessarily want to disassemble that stuff. You want to understand it and integrate it. Um, that's the hardest part for me. It's like the decisions after right? Like after you've done something like this and you've gone through this process. And I feel like it's something that's really prevalent with people that I talk to because most of the people I'm talking to are people that are teaching in some way. So I feel like, oh, I watched a video the other day that said like some of the things that you didn't have as a child, your wounding and your the things that you lacked are things that you will bring forward to give to other people in your medicine that you bring. So
Mm,
if it's acceptance or if it's like for you, it's like the body, like, maybe no one told you like the body is a cool thing, be in it, like you
yeah.
said, we're taught to not. So I love that that's been pulled in and but the hardest part is, right? It's like when you have this stuff in your mind and you're like, yep, these are the things I need to do. And why am I not doing them? I just went on like I've been on like a 3-day tangent on myself about that stuff, about meditation. I'm like, okay, I know this is what I want. And I know all I have to do is get my nervous system on board. Like, why can I not meditate? And I talked to Denise yesterday, who she's very much went into the embodiment and the movement instead of necessarily restricting yourself to stillness and meditating. Like, go for a walk and move your body. And she does something similar where she was like moving really slow and the somatic piece of it. So when you said that part about not oh my gosh, discipline and what was the word you used?
It's devotion instead of
Devotion.
discipline.
Yes.
Or not necessarily instead of, but it's just like having devotion with discipline. Again, we're not going to get rid of discipline or we're all not going to get anything done. And I still believe like getting stuff done is important. But it's having a sense of devotion at the same time with it.
Yeah. And it feels like that was the piece that's missing, right? It's like the part that feels like loving. I'm doing this because I think discipline has I think it is self-love, right? It's like I want this better thing, then I know that I'm going to commit to myself to do the things. But there's something about the word devotion where if you weave it in with the discipline, it's like you're doing this and it reminds you why you're doing it, right? And
I think you're exactly right that discipline is self-love, and I think devotion is self-reverence.
okay, that's so good.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I have so like I have such a deep respect for myself that I'm gonna weave in like sense of like a devotion to myself as well.
hmm Yeah, and I feel like once you get there, that piece, it's like it's so much easier to move through the things that you're feeling resistance around,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
might be a whole nother set of things for you, but it's all great. It's all being a human. It's fine.
Yeah.
Humaning is great. Um, and so I think too, when people watch or listen to stuff like this, they assume that the people sitting in front of them have figured it out. They're teaching it now, and they're like, yeah, this is easy. Like, let me show you the way. I'm good. I know you're struggling. I'm here to help you. But I know for myself and for every single person I talk to, I like to demystify that thing that people have, that vision they have, especially because of social media, that there are still challenges that all of us are going through. So they should not feel as if there's something wrong with them or they're just not there yet, quote unquote. So do you have an area of your life where you're really diving into like the learning and you're being stretched a little bit and you're kind of like, okay, wow, this is like something I'm working through?
Yeah, absolutely. I have so much to say on that actually. It's interesting. One of the reasons, I mean, obviously COVID like stepped me away from teaching yoga. But before that, I actually stepped away before COVID had hit. I was like the beginning of 2020. I stepped away from teaching classes because I was so burnt out from the like yoga and wellness industry. I had recently completed my 500-hour training. And so for the past few years, like prior to that, I had been every few weeks going and spending a weekend doing all these yoga trainings with so many other different teachers. And it's so interesting how when you like sit in a room and observe all these different people that are in the wellness space and you hear how real they are, and it's not like, oh, I'm sitting at the front of the room, so I have all of my shit figured out and, da da da, and everything like that, that people feel that it is. And it's like, no, like so many of these people, myself included, are all on our own journeys, figuring stuff out along the way. And I really dislike the sense that we need to pretend like we're not.
Hmm.
Like just because I'm leading this program doesn't mean that it's like, oh, but like I'm like fully embodied. Like, or anything like that. It's like, no, all of this is a practice for me. It's the exact same thing like with yoga. It's that it's a yoga practice. This is a practice. This isn't I'm done. It's
Mhm.
not figured it out. It's every single day is a practice. And there's always going to be things that come up that I say, I didn't do as good of a job today as I would have liked, but I'll try again tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, So yeah, I think every single day is like an evolution, and I like that.
Hmm.
I like constantly evolving. I like constantly being able to check in with myself and see progress or see where I want to work on.
Hmm.
And so presently for me, um, I um, I'm like, what do I want to? My energy is definitely one. I have a really sensitive horse. My gelding is like really big on energy, and it's funny. Just last night, actually, my husband and I we had gone out doing night check, and I was filling the hay nets, and my gelding and my mare were both standing at one hay net outside, and I was talking to my husband, telling him a story, and I was saying like, yeah, you remember the time? And it was something that at the time had upset me. And so I was like, remember that? And this happened and da da da. And as I'm retelling the story, my energy is going back to that place. And my gelding like whipped around and gave a big snort. Like, don't come in my paddock with this. Like it was, and so one of the things that I'm really working on is to always be checking my energy to say, before I respond to this, before I enter this room, before I walk out this door, before I, do anything like that, it's like, just let me ground my feet, let me take a breath and ask like, who do I want to be? Do I want to be like really powerful and confident and walk in because I'm going to be giving this talk or something like that? Do I want to be like really soft and grounded? Do I like, how do I want to show up? um because I know for myself, if I don't do that, if I don't check in first, I'll go in and I'll be like, "Hey, how's it going? I'm Danielle." You know, and like, and sometimes that's just not the right energy for it. Like I'm a really fun, bubbly person, and I just sometimes I just need to be a little aware. What is my energy like right now? How can I make sure that it's both like resonating with me, but also going to be resonating with the environment that I'm about to step into? My paddock with my horses, as an example.
Hmm. Yeah, and I love how great it is for us all to have these little wisdom keepers around us to remind us and keep us accountable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, my horses are sensitive, but I think they're more here to support me. I mean, there have been times where they brought through big lessons, but my dogs, I have a very sensitive dog and he's very tied to my nervous system and also my older son, and there was some transitions going on where he was moving out and it was a little chaotic and he was going through some emotional stuff, and the dogs are were so affected by it, and I was like, how sensitive they are, but then to remember if you're going out, and sharing space with family, or if you're facilitating something, or you're going to go do body work or be with a horse or whatever it is, whatever the thing you're doing, um it's like having that moment right in between, even if it's just a few moments, to be like, where am I at and how do I actually want to show up, and like, what do I need to do to be able to get myself there? Like, do I have tools, in this current moment, to do that for myself? And I think that's what so many of us are trying to do, is just like, here, here's this thing for you that you can go to. Um, I guess one last question would be, do you have, say you're gonna walk into a space and you are feeling like kind of dysregulated and a little bit like, oh, do you have something that's like a quick, like, let me get myself into my body practice that you do?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually about to share this before you asked me that question, so this is perfect. Um, the back body has been a transformational practice for me, and it's something that I go to again and again and again. I weave it into a lot of my teachings, even my yoga classes. I'm like, hey guys, like we're gonna look at the back body tonight, and it's the idea that a lot of times that we live in our front bodies. So we are very aware of our stomachs, we're very aware of, like our shoulders rolling in, like everything like that, and we forget about our backs. And the thing about when we're aware of just our front body, It not only can physically, I mean, also too, like we're always on our phones and we're always on our computers, so we're leaning in. But even if we're just more aware of our front body, we're both physically and energetically leaning in.
Mm,
Leaning towards, like leaning
mhm,
forwards can indicate to the body and the subconscious that we're ready to please,
mm,
appease, that we're, giving our energy away or we're leaning into somebody else's. So it's almost like, how can I help you? Like a people pleasing sort of an energy. I'm here, I'm leaning forward.
mhm,
And so one of the things that I like to do is just be more aware of my back body. So if
mhm,
I'm sitting in a chair, it's feeling my back against the chair. If I'm standing or if I'm sitting and I don't have a backrest, it's just leaning into my own space. So from a side perspective, rather than being, slightly forwards here or something like that, it's even if I'm on a Zoom call, it's just leaning so that I'm more in my sacrum. If I'm sitting in a chair, it's like I feel my back pockets. My
mhm,
tailbone is resting, my spine is lengthening upwards. I'm in my back. I feel my back. I feel my back engaged. If I'm in a backrest, I feel my back against the chair.
mhm,
And that signals to our body and our subconscious and our nervous system that we're in our own energy. It's like we not only are literally activating and being aware of our spine and our backbone. So I mean, what does that say right there? Like I've got a backbone, like I have my boundaries, I have my own energy here. But it's also just like I'm good. You're there and I'm here and you've got your energy, I've got mine. So I'm just going to stay within my energy. It's not that I'm being cold or I'm being, like unsympathetic or, discompassionate or anything like that. I'm just in my energy here.
mhm,
So it's, a sense of grounding. It's a sense of just being able to take a breath, but it's also, in my opinion, a sense of empowerment.
mhm. I love that. I love that. I love it, and it's the same but not the same. Um, Shaylee and I were, I don't gamble. We were in Vegas because we did an Arizona trip, and the layover, we went into the Grand Canyon, and they picked us up and dropped us off in Vegas. So we were like going out and around, and we were playing with our energy and slot machines. Of course, we can't just go to Vegas normal. We have to like
Love
you
it.
know? So she's like, okay, like we're doing all this different stuff. And what I realized is I don't gamble and I didn't have an attachment to it. And also my boyfriend had given me money. So I had zero like scarcity buy-in. There was no, I hope this works. It was literally like I could feel myself. And we did a game of roulette too. And I freaking won like $700. I've never gambled before. And it was strictly because I did this. And it's that thing where we would put the coins in, or I looked at the number intuitively. There was one that just kept jumping out, so I just kept betting on it. And the very last time I was like, this is it, I'm putting all the money on it, and that's how we won. But I recognized it was like I would say I'm just going to lean back and allow it. And it was almost like I just stepped back, and instead of being like, please work, and you're
Yeah.
especially if you're talking about like trying to manifest something or something you really want or someone you really care about, it's like I find myself doing that a lot. And when we were there, it was like every time I was like, I'm just gonna lean back. And I'm kind of disconnecting from the outcome, detaching from it. But like I'm just here and no matter what happens, I'm still here and I'm still good and it doesn't change anything. All of a sudden we were winning all this money. I was like, so as soon as you said that, I was like, oh my God, that's what we were doing at the slot machine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like non-attachment. It's a sense of like personal abundance where it's like I don't need to lean in, anything like that. Like I'm good here. Like I've got myself.
Mhm.
Um yeah, absolutely. I 100%. It's been transformational for me. And so that was really cool that it's like you saw it happen in real time that way too.
I know, it's so funny. I was like, oh, that's what we were doing. I was just like lean back and let it happen. And we
Yeah.
do. We don't we really don't focus on the back body. And that's yeah, like you were saying, it's like the spine, it's like your boundaries, it's like your
Yeah.
stability, it's like everything. And so it is interesting that we stay mostly here.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I'm
And I
that
think too, like working with our horses, sorry, is also as well, like we can get tied into their energy too. And it's like sometimes like our horses, don't want us to be like, he like let me fix you, let me work with you, anything like that, because that's when they're kind of like, whoa, this is, um and then also too, sometimes as well, like we can take on our horse's energy where it's like we can almost start to be like pitying them.
Mhm.
And that doesn't feel good either. Like, it doesn't feel good if someone pities me. And
Yeah.
so, if I'm there feeling super bad for my horses or something like that, like if I look at my mare and like she's still like, I mean, I have both my horses here at home, and my mare, it's been since 2021 that we resolved her pelvis, but like she's not ever going to be what she was before, and like neither one of us care about that. Um, and but if I pitied her,
Mhm.
she would be like, who do you think you're talking to?
Who
Like,
cares? You can't build
yeah,
a with me,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like mind your business.
Yeah. And so I'm not gonna put that on her. So it's the exact same thing where it's like, you've got your energy, I've got mine. And like we can absolutely like share the space and share our beautiful energies together and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like I'm gonna stay in my energy so that I'm not projecting onto you, and I'm also not taking anything away from you.
Mhm. Yeah, how good. How fun. And I'm just looking at like even when I do my guided journeys and my meditations, I'm always going, and I feel like I am totally in, I feel like now I'm gonna like make sure I weave the spine in too.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
very impactful.
I'm not doing it, and I'm definitely gonna start doing that. So thank you for that awareness. That's great. We are coming up on an hour. Oh, I could have done this for like a long time. We could keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have anything else that is like you have a burning desire to say that would make you feel more complete?
Great question.
I just don't like leaving people feeling like, oh, there's this thing I really wanted to say.
Yeah. This isn't like a burning desire, like I came here wanting to share this. It was more so just something that came up while we were talking. I'm gonna share a really quick little thing about meditation.
Mhm.
Um, I, for many years, struggled very, very, like really, really hard to meditate. It actually would make me angry. I would sit down I'd be like having a great day, my morning would be going great, and I'd think, you know what I should do? Meditate. And I would sit down and I would meditate, and I would actually get into a fight response. I would be angry, I would be activated, I would be like, I would feel so out of what I was before I even sat down. And I would constantly think like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Like, why am I getting stressed from meditating? Um, and through a lot of the things that I've been learning, it's if we are in a fight or flight response, meditating is not helpful for us. Like the woman that you had referenced earlier saying just go for a walk or something like that, that is actually the best thing that we can do for ourselves, because the body needs to move.
Mhm.
It's like we are feeling, an activation, and by meditating, it's like just sit in it, just stifle it, or start to go into the mind. Forget about the body and just be in here or anything like that, or in meditation is like don't be in there, but we end up going there. It's like I'm just sitting, I'm feeling so activated, I'm just sitting. All I'm going to do is have racing thoughts and overthink.
Mhm.
And the best thing that we can do instead, if we are feeling activated, is to start to move the body, whether it's just like swaying and being and soothing the body and rocking, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's doing some stretching to, reduce some of the cortisol out of our body, just inviting in some movement to move us out of that fight or flight. And then when we're not in that fight or flight, then meditate all you want. But if we are feeling activated, sometimes the best thing to do isn't meditation.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to
I
mention that.
yeah, it's so in line with because there's been a chunk of time where I was really great at it, and all of a sudden recently I'm like, oh, I'm just avoiding it actively for like the last week, and I was like, that's so interesting. So I've been getting really curious about what that was about, and there's a lot of transition happening around me in so many different ways. So I kind of know that it's bringing all this stuff to the surface for me to like learn from. And so when I was like, well, let me compromise with myself. I'm gonna put the meditation on and I'm gonna walk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was great, but I did recognize even doing that, it's just around our property and I recognize how often my mind wanted to go, oh, this would be so great for so and so, or oh, there's this idea I'm having where I'm like, no, this is about me receiving right now. And I
Mm.
just continuously had to remind myself that I was just doing this to feel good. I wasn't
Yeah.
doing it to come up with a better idea or inspiration, or it's like, I just want to nourish my own energy and fill myself back up. And it was so interesting because I think I'd been away from that for so long that it was actually like me fighting to get back into it. And the compromise I made with my own brain was, okay, we can move and do this. But
Yeah.
it was interesting. And one of the things I do with horses when I had training horses and I'd bring them in, I would put them in the round pen, not to round pen them, but I said it was like our uh expression sessions where it was like I wanted to see, did they need to feel safe in movement or did they need to feel safe in stillness, because I found that it was either one or the other, and so I
Mm.
can sort of figure that out and support them, and I don't feel like it's different for people. um
Yeah.
and it's just, I guess, about knowing yourself and, honoring what you need and not judging it, because I was judging it all week long up until this morning when I let myself go get coffee. I was like, what is going on? I need to sit in traffic, and that is where I'm going to get all of my understanding from myself. And that is what happened. So,
Yeah.
very in line, very.
I love that. Do you feel safe in stillness or do you feel safe in movement?
Mhm.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah, and because I have a couple friends, I have a lot, all most of my friends are in some type of teaching space and coaching space, and I have one she's so freaking fit. I actually had her on a couple weeks ago. She's just like a workout monster, and she's like coaches these, huge corporations and leadership, and she's like, do, and then she goes to meditate, and she's like, I have to sit in this, and I'm like, dude. So it's like this balance of honoring it and then going, can I dip my toe into this discomfort and feel into what it's about, and kind of like, you know, comb through it a little bit and let the things that like maybe are old and dissolve. So I love your whole thing that you talked about because um it's so in line with like, I just love it because everyone comes on and then like the basics are the same and everyone has their own way to say it and do it. And that's like my favorite thing that I want people to be able to hear, because I feel like when people say things differently, it'll resonate. And like for me, the backbone thing, like let me tell you, that was a game changer. That was my aha moment for this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
It was
use
a game
that.
changer for me. That's why I keep spreading it, is because it was such
I
a
was
game
like,
changer
hold
for
on. That's
me.
true. Even though I experienced it, I still wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah.
So now I will. So yes, thank you. Um, so if people want to find you, and I personally want to know about the program that starts in April, because I'm going to do it. Where can they find you?
My website, it's self-titled. It's daniellecrowell.com. It's Crowell is my last name. And I'm on Instagram, same handle, but I think there's a period. So it's like Danielle.Crowell. Um, and yeah, those would probably be the two best places. I'm starting to write a bit on Substack. Well, I've posted one so far. But my goal is to start to get regular with it and hopefully post weekly. But if anybody doesn't know about Substack, it's like a beautiful community. It's long form writing, so it's going back to the blogging and stuff like that, and it's like a social media community of bloggers. Um, so I'll be hanging out there more often. That link is on my website as well. And yeah, Roots of Embodiment, the online version starts April 24th. It'll be a kickoff Zoom call. And then every week after that, so for the next 3 weeks, each phase will be sent out via email. It'll be an online resource of like a library of all the different things. And then on the fourth week, there's a midway check-in Zoom call. And then the next 3 weeks after that, each phase is delivered, and then there'll be a wrapped up with a Zoom call as well. So to end on June 5th. But all that is on my website. You'll just see the links everywhere for Roots of Embodiment. And yeah.
Cool. Rad. How exciting. I love it. I love all of it. I'm so glad I got to learn more about it. because I didn't know.
Yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. Thank you for letting me share it and for bringing me on here all together and sharing me with your community. I really appreciate it.
Yes, I really appreciate it. I love this conversation. So thank you for hanging out.
Awesome.
All right.